All right, I am recording and I am here at Los Trancos Open Space Preserve, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, and there's bigger sign behind these. And there's the bigger sign. Los Trancos Open Space Preserve. And go over here to the smaller sign. I am here to follow the fault trail going around the San Andreas Fault in this area. Showing the scenery right in here. All right. All right, do me a big favor. Read the description on what we're supposed to see.
Let me finish number 2 first.
Oh, okay.
I'm almost done with you. Notice Crystal Springs Reservoir and San Andreas Lake. I never saw those.
And that's at number 2.
Yeah. Station 3. This picture was taken shortly after the 1906 earthquake. To get to the same perspective, walk out to the end of the posts and look back in the direction from which one came.
So go back to the post, number 3 post.
Uses the term plural, posts.
Oh.
Plural.
Well, there are posts right here, plural.
End of the post and look back in the direction from which one came.
So that'd be that direction where we came from.
I assume so. In the photograph, there are 2 cracks running along what is now a fairly flat road-like feature in the landscape. This is where the main active fault slipped during the 1906 earthquake. The cracks in the photo are open. This means there is not only lateral movement during the 06 earthquake, but that the sides of the fault moved farther apart than they were before the quake. Since then, these cracks have filled in. Every time the ground ruptures, the sides of the fault will move further apart and then fill in. This is why a flat area that resembles a roadbed can be seen. What are you talking about, down here?
Maybe. There's a post. Or another post.
This feature is called a bench and is typically found along faults. Historically, these benches were often used as roadbeds. I mean, this is what most like a roadbed, I guess.
I think so, right in here.
You know, it says walk to the end of the post, so maybe that they meant here.
Another post here.
I bet they meant to walk from here, or thereabouts. And turn around and look that away. Not me. Anyhow, I read all of number 3.
Okay, so somewhere in here, I'd say, are the cracks that got filled in. So, but one moment, okay.
This way. You want to look this way. You want to see an offset of the fence. Should I read?
Yes.
This is how a fence built across the fault might have looked immediately after the earthquake. The fence has been reconstructed from century-old materials found on the preserve. An original section of this fence is still standing on the downhill side of the trail toward Los Trancos Creek. During the quake, faulting may have moved the far right-hand segment as much as 3 feet in a northwesterly direction. About 400, this is at the time of the earthquake, about 400 miles of the fault slipped from San Juan Bautista to Cape Mendocino. Starting off the Golden Gate, it unzipped at over 5,000 miles an hour, taking 20 seconds to reach this point. However, the northern part of the fault slipped much more than the southern part of the fault. The section north of the Golden Gate shifted 15 to 16 feet. The section between San Fran and Portola Valley 7 to 9 feet, and this area southward only shifted 2 to 3 feet. May not have released all the energy stored in the southern part of the fault. Smaller quakes similar to the Loma Prieta may have released the energy. In any case, energy is continuously being stored under our feet, and we should be prepared for the results of its release.
Gee, thanks. And now go ahead.
On Jay's fault.
No, that's Tim's fault. And now I'm looking down the hill, down the mountain. Rolling and it's rolling. You're on.
Station 5. Notice the willows and abundant brush to the left. These plants indicate there's more water here than in other areas. Springs are often found along faults. As the faults move, the rock in the fault is ground into a fine clay called fault gouge. The clay binds the crushed rock together and forms a barrier to the downhill flow of underground water. When underground water hits this clay barrier, the water builds up on the uphill side and eventually bubbles out of the ground, forming springs or wet spots. When the ground becomes saturated, landslides are prone to occur, especially if the ground is shaken by a strong earthquake. Visitors can see that the area below the willows is a recovering landslide area. It is covered with poison oak, which often indicates a history of landsliding.
So do not touch the poison oak. I do not plan on touching any plants.
That's a good idea.
All right, you may start giving me the audio.
Having just crossed over the main fault again, one can see the prominent fault features. The sag pond at one's feet, and the road-like bench upon which the fault markers are standing.
And we know one fault marker back there.
The sag pond is filling in with sediment, And if one is here during the dry months, it probably looks like a shallow depression. The trail along which one just walked is on a slight ridge higher than the sag pond.
Okay.
Rarely
Show
does
the
one
trail.
find ridges like this. This one running parallel to the contours, which are lines that connect two points that are at the same elevation. I'm sure I know what that means. Usually these ridges follow the drainage down the hill. This is called a pressure ridge and is another fault feature. And there's an illustration here.
Okay.
From this point, one can see two oak trees in front of them, one on either side of the trail. I'm wondering if that means back that way.
Turn around this way.
Either way.
I think these are the oak trees.
Notice how the main trunks are growing parallel to the ground, so that ain't those. It's, here's one of them. The other maybe, oh, and this one.
Okay, that's one.
Here and here.
And now looking over here.
Large limbs growing vertically, not a typical growth pattern. The main trunks were cored, a process where a small plug of wood is removed to count the tree rings. They show the main trunks date to 1899. The vertical limbs are newer, dating to 1908. These trees were quite possibly thrown to the ground by the shaking. Even so, there was enough root contact with the ground after the quake to allow the trees to survive. The branches started to sprout from the side and grow upwards toward the sunlight. The unusual shape of these trees is probably due to the quake.